Hey there nation, welcome to the show. We help you to play miniatures wargaming on a budget. It is I, Commander CheapSkate, and now it's time for another edition of Shadows over Shadespire. These are our Warhammer Age of Sigmar Skirmish battle reports, and this one is battle report number 4. This is a Clash at Dawn scenario, and right now we're actually starting to engage into the actual different scenarios for the campaign that's found inside the Skirmish rulebook. Like I said before, the very first 3 battle reports were all warband fights, and the reason why is because we wanted to bloody up our warbands before going in. We have 6 different warbands that are fighting in this campaign. And now that we're done getting our blood up for all of our troops, now it's time for us to actually start engaging inside the campaign. So the very first round of scenarios will be all fought for Clash at Dawn. All 6 of our different warbands will be fighting each other using the scenario rules, and this is the very first one of that series. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, as you can see in the battle reports title here, it is fought between Sergeant Sigmar with the Lords of Azure Skies, that's the Stormcast Eternals warband, versus me with my Cheapskates of my Empire warband. So we're going to run through some background music real fast. We're going to show you guys the armies real quick, show exactly what's in the lists. If you guys want to take a closer look at what we have, feel free to pause. Until then, ladies and gentlemen, I will see you guys in deployment. Alright, and that takes us directly to the scenario rules. So this one is called Clash at Dawn. This one's kind of an interesting scenario in the sense that what happens is that you actually divide the table into quarters. Where the tower is located at is that's quarter number 1, where the standing stones are, that's quarter number 2. Where the hill is on the bottom left-hand corner, that's quarter number 3. And the town right here on the right-hand side on the bottom right-hand corner, that is quarter number 4. What ends up happening is you roll a d6 for each one of your troops to figure out exactly which quarter of the battlefield they roll up on. As you can see here, we have all of our troops kind of evenly spread out through all the 4 different areas as well. And not only, so you roll a d6, if you roll a 1, they go to quarter 1, roll a 2, quarter 2, roll a 3, they go to quarter 3, roll a 4, they go to quarter 4. If you roll a 5 or a 6, you can actually deploy where your troops are exactly where they want to go at. So you can see they were kind of spread about. We also have some kind of interesting rule sets because it's supposed to represent that it's dawn. Line of sight is actually limited up to 12 inches, eventually goes up to 18 inches, and then you can fight normal as well as normal. And after that is normal, Age of Sigmar rules afterwards. So let's go and talk about the individual deployment zones and talk about where everyone is located at. Alright, first of all, let's talk about quarter number 1. As you can see, this is the deployment. As you can see, I have 3 members of my cheap shots, as well as 3 members of Rommel's Rangers located at the top of that tower. That's where basically I rolled off my guys to be located at. If you look on the bottom of the screen there as well, we have Lupin the Lamplighter, which is the Knight Azeros for Sergeant Sigmar, as well as one of his Liberators, and they're also deployed in quarter number 1 as well. So that makes the deployment on this side of the board. In quarter number 2, we have 2 paladins, paladin retributors. Those are the Stormbringers. At the same time, you can see I also have 2 members of the Black Company, as well as 2 Rommel's Rangers, as well as my Rough Rider, who is my Outrider Pistolier, who's also located in quarter number 2 as well. So that makes up the second quarter's deployment. In quarter number 3, as you can see, we have the Heralds of Sigmar. We got our 2 Paladin Retributors, 2 Prosecutors. We also have a Liberator located there as well. And up on the hill, of course, you got my Marksman for my cheap shots. He's armed with the Hawkland Long Rifle. I got 2 members of the Black Company, as well as Commander CheapSkate himself, located on top of that hill. I decided to kind of give him a little bit of upgrade by giving him a Warhorse, and that is where he is located at. And finally, in quarter number 4, the Liberator Prime is rolled up in that point area, so that is where Sergeant Sigmar places the very last of his troops. So now that all the troops are kind of scattered about, we roll off to see initiative. We go directly to the top of turn number 1. Alright, so we roll for initiative. As you can see, the Stormcast Eternals win the first initiative on this turn, and this photo is taken directly after the command phase as well as the move phase. Pretty much he starts maneuvering his troops into the various quarters where all my troops are located at, so that way they can engage him in close combat, because this Stormcast Eternals army don't have really much shooting, so close combat is pretty much where it is for these guys. Up in the first district, as you can see here, we have the Knight Azeroth looping the Lamplighter, as well as one of his Liberators start making their way towards the tower. Pretty much my guess is that Sergeant Sigmar is going to try to charge into my shooters up on the top of the tower and try to take those guys out using his general. At the same time, he also maneuvers his Stormbringers, his 2 Paladin Retributors to get closer into engagement area to take on my infantry here in the second quarter. And finally, the third quarter takes up his Heralds of Sigmar, which is 2 Prosecutors, as well as one of his Liberators, get to within charging distance on top of the hill to engage my troops located there. As you can also see, he also ran up his Prime out of the fourth quarter from that town towards the base of the hill, start engaging my troops. So that pretty much makes the move phase on this one. Shooting phase is kind of a wash because he missed all of his shots with his Prosecutors, so because I would go directly to charge phase. And because it's a Knight Azeroth, he has no problem making it to the top of the tower. Same thing with his Liberator. So now my shooters on top of this tower are now engaged in close combat. His Paladin Retributors also make their charge rolls. He rolls directly into my Black Company Greatswords. He also sends his second Liberator Prime charge directly into my Rough Rider, which is my Outrider shooter. So that's kind of rough there as well. And at the same time, his Prosecutors as well as Liberator engage my Black Company members as well as my General. So with charging done out of the way, we go directly to the combat phase. And during the combat phase, my opponent kind of flubs his rolls. He only manages to kill 1 archer out of the entire lot, and that's because of the 4 attacks that his general gets, 1 basically successfully wounded, while the rest of his attacks just kind of flubbed. He rolled a bunch of 1s and 2s for his attack dice, so because of that, not much really happened on this side. So yeah, I did lose an archer, but considering how much damage these guys could put onto my units, I really can't complain at this point. And once again, the flubbing just keeps on occurring. His Paladin Retributor doesn't manage to kill any of the members of the Black Company. However, the Black Company does manage to put 1 wound onto that Paladin Retributor. Now, these guys are carrying 3 wounds, so that guy is still be kind of sticking around, which is actually kind of deadly. At the same time, his Retributor Prime, however, had no problem whatsoever just, smashing apart my Outrider like it was nobody's business. So that part was kind of sad. And in turn number 2, my Black Company had no problem chopping apart that last Liberator, so that guy is now dead. At the same time, it was much kind of a push between my Sharpshooters as well as the combat between this Prosecutor. So those guys are still engaged in close combat. It was kind of flipping on both sides there. Commander CheapSkate, however, had no problem destroying that Prosecutor like it was nobody's business. He put the hurt on that guy, so that guy is now dead too. So with combat phase over, we go directly to the top of turn 1 for the Empire. So the very first thing I do is I decided to use my General's command ability to hold the line ability. So I basically kept all my troops located on top of this hill. We give them all +1 to hit as well as +1 to wound as well, so that way we can finish off this Prosecutor. And at the same time, gain bonuses to shoot at the Liberator Prime that is charging towards this hill to back up that Prosecutor as well. So that pretty much makes up the command phase on this one. During the move phase, all I do is I take all my shooters, my 3 riflemen, as well as my 2 archers, and just kind of turn them 180 so that way they can shoot at these guys during the shooting phase. And during the move phase, I also move my archers on this side of the board for quarter number 2, so that way they get in a good position. My plan here is to have my archers shoot at this paladin during the shooting phase, and then charge during the charge phase, and then engage in close combat, and just basically kill this paladin by having him just being outnumbered by 5 troops against 1. So with that being said, we go directly to the shooting phase. Unfortunately for me, my handgunners as well as my archers didn't manage to hit anything, even though they're shooting at point blank at these guys. I missed all my shots, and the shots that I did make, basically I failed my wound as well, so that part was kind of rough. However, my archers were able to put 1 wound onto this Paladin Retributor, and that's before they actually charged in. I forgot to take a picture of the charge phase on this one, so this one's kind of taken directly after the charge phase, even though I kind of moved my troops already. But needless to say, during the shooting phase, they did shoot the Paladin Retributor, managed to put a wound on him as well. Then they also charged in, and now that Paladin Retributor is completely surrounded, so that way we can engage him in close combat. So that being said, we go directly to the combat phase. And as you can see in this photo, my troops had no problem killing taking out the last remaining wound onto this Paladin Retributor, so that part was kind of awesome. So now I only got 1 more Paladin to worry about. However, during the combat phase, I lost all of my troops on top of this tower except for one archer, which was actually a really, really horrible in that part. It ended up being a miracle because when I rolled for my bravery test, I rolled like a 1, so because none of my guys really fled, but still, at the same time, that was absolutely devastating. Just to kind of show you how powerful Stormcast Eternals can actually be when you roll pretty decent for them in the close combat phase. So with that being done, we go directly to top of turn number 2, we roll for initiative on this one. And luckily for me, I got the top of turn number 2 on this one, so now I get to go back to back, which is pretty awesome. And the very first thing I do after the command phase is I run my archer down from that tower and have him run as quickly as possible. My goal is in order to do that, so that way my opponent has to waste a turn of movement as well as charge to kind of finish off this archer. That's pretty much what I'm kind of going with in this one. So yeah, that poor guy is running for the hills because all of his friends got destroyed at the top of that tower. Also, during the movement phase in quarter number 2, I take my 3 my black company members and my great swords, as well as my 2 archers, and they start approaching the second paladin retributor. Our plan is just to swarm this guy and hopefully just take him out with sheer numbers of troops. So that makes up the movement phase here in quarter number 2. And in quarter number 3, the first thing I did is I used my command ability to hold the line to give the bonuses to my handgunners, so that way those guys don't move, but they get +1 to hit, +1 to wound as well. And during the movement phase, I moved both Commander Cheapskate as well as my 2 members of the Black Company to deal with this Liberator Prime that's coming our way. During the shooting phase, my marksman as well as my handgunner, with the bonuses they receive from holding the line, were able to finish off that Liberator Prime, so that part is kind of cool. And during the shooting phase, my archers managed to land 1 wound onto this paladin retributor as well. So with that done, we go directly to the charge phase. And as you can see in this photo, basically my 3 members of the Black Company as well as my archers charge into this paladin retributor. We engage him in close combat. And we also kill this fool in close combat as well, which is actually pretty good on that part. So that being said, we go directly to the bottom of turn number 2 for the Stormcast Eternals. So here's the top of turn number 2 for the Stormcast Eternals. I forgot to take this photo beforehand, but this is actually right after the Battle Shock phase. As you can see, there used to be a Liberator on the top of that tower, but because my buddy Sergeant Sigmar lost so many guys this last turn, he had to take a battle test to see if any of his troops would run away from a bravery test. Unfortunately, he rolled pretty high on that part, so because of that, his one remaining Liberator decided to run off the field, so that part's kind of sad as well. So with that being said, we go directly to the movement phase. This photo is taken directly after the move phase. Basically, all he did is he took his Knight Azeroth, dropped him down from the top of the tower. During the charge phase, he also engaged my archer in the charging phase so that we can finish him off in close combat. And he managed to kill off my archer as well, as if there was going to be any down that part. So that pretty much looks like the turn number 2 for the Stormcast Eternals. So that being said, we roll off for initiative for turn number 3. And in turn number 3, I start moving my troops out again. This is taken directly after the command phase. I use the hold the line ability for my marksman armed with the Hawkland long rifle, as well as the handgunner, so they don't move, but they'll get bonuses for their +1 to hit, as well as +1 to move as well. As you can see in this photo, I just start running up my troops as quickly as I possibly can to try to swarm this Knight Azeroth and hopefully destroy him. Here's a close-up of my members of the Black Company, as well as my general running through this hut village in order to get engaged with that Knight Azeroth. And here's a close-up of my 2 archers, as well as the other 3 members of the Black Company running as quickly as they possibly can through these standing stones towards that Knight Azeroth as well. So the movement phase over, we go directly to the shooting phase. And during the shooting phase, oddly enough, my marksman actually managed to put 2 wounds onto this Knight Azeroth. His shot actually made it. Also wound, my opponent failed to save, so because of that he carries 2 wounds because Hawkland rifles do 2 damage apiece, so that part was kind of nice as well. And that's where my opponent, Sergeant Sigmar, realizes that he's not going to win this battle report. However, even though he may not win this battle report, he could also still stick it to me by giving me a minor victory by surrendering. And that's exactly what happens, and that brings us to the end of the game here. As you can see in this photo, my buddy Sergeant Sigmar decides to surrender. He decides to do that because in the skirmish rules, if you don't defeat your warband, enemy's warband, by killing everyone as well as a general, it doesn't count as a major victory. You don't get as many renown points, whereas if your opponent just surrenders to you, your opponent only gets about half of the amount of renown points out of doing that as well. So my opponent decided to do that to kind of, even though he lost, he didn't want to do that to kind of stick it to me as well, which is actually kind of a good idea because I was going to have no problem shooting this guy off the board once I got close up into him. So that being said, we go directly to the post game because this battle report is now officially over. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, this is the post game for battle report number 4 for Shadows over Shadespire. It was a Clash at Dawn scenario fought between Sergeant Sigmar, the Lords of Azure Skies, the Stormcast Eternals, versus Commander CheapSkate, the Cheapskates of the Empire. So let's go and talk about exactly what ended up happening. For the Lords of Azure Skies, they lost this battle report, so because of that, they only earned 6 renown points. However, when they rolled on the rewards of battle, they earned a healing elixir, and the elixir goes to Lupin the Lamplighter because that's their general. So now, once during a game, during his hero phase, he can pop it and gets healed heal himself up D3 wounds, which is actually pretty good. For his recruitment, he decided to take his 6 renown points and hire 2 liberators, adding to his unit. So now his new renown is at 65 points. His current record now is at 0 wins as well as 2 losses. So things are not looking too well for the Lords of Azure Sky. For the CheapSkate, ended up being a minor victory for me. I only got 8 renown points instead of a full 10 because he surrendered instead of me driving him off. And however, during the rewards of battle sequence, I did roll Heroic Saga. Also got 3 renown points, so that actually ended up being good for 11 renown points total. For my recruitment, I decided to hire up 2 Empire Knights as well, so my new renown total is now at 70 points. I also got 1 point for spare, and my current record is at 2 wins as well as 0 losses. So that's going to do it for this one, ladies and gentlemen, for Shadows over Shadespire. This is battle report number 4. Like I said before, for this second round of videos that we're doing, we'll all be playing Clash at Dawn scenarios for the other 4 remaining warbands, and then from there we'll progress to the next scenario within the campaign. As always, you guys, tune in every Wednesday for Warband Wednesday. We're actually putting up these Shadows over Shadespire videos up every week, once a week, every week, for every Wednesday. And also don't forget, we alternate every Thursday between Warhammer the 8th edition fantasy battle reports as well as Necromunda battle reports, and on Sundays we alternate between the 9th age as well as Age of Sigmar. So we'll see you guys again later on this week. You guys stay classy. We will catch you on the flip side. Peace out.